Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. We're so happy you're here. We're just going to allow a little bit of time for people to filter in and get into the webinar with us today. So welcome, welcome. Hopefully you have beautiful weather this Tuesday morning. It is sunshiny at my house at least. So I hope you're enjoying some of that. So glad to see some familiar names here and some people we don't know yet. So if you haven't met us, you'll get to meet us today. Glad you're here. Okay, I think it stopped filtering in, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. We're going to get started with the WA Grant umbrella. So if you are not here for the WA Grant umbrella session, maybe time to go somewhere else or just stick around. It's going to be a lovely session. We'd love to have you here. But first, I'd just like to mention I am here with my wonderful colleagues that are going to be presenting on different topics. We have Gabrielle Matul-Wurst and Lyle Iramata here with us joined today, and they're going to join us just a little bit later in the presentation to go over their information. I will like to introduce myself as well. My name is Carly Curley. I use pronouns she, her, and I'm the Assistant Director for Need-Based Programs. As a visual description, I have a green WASAC background, light green, neon green hair, I don't know, red lips, and fair skin. And we'll go ahead and start moving. Thanks, Lyle and Gabi. We'll see you a little bit later. So a little bit about our Zoom functionality today. So we're going to be utilizing the Q&A feature for our questions. Please ask anything that comes up using that feature. We will be monitoring it. All three of us will be monitoring it for questions. We'll have some different breaks throughout the presentation to allow for some questions and answer time, as well as at the end. So feel free to put anything that you're thinking about in there. We'll make sure to try and address it as soon as possible. We also have reactions. So if you're loving something, if you're liking something, if you want to clap, whatever you want to show us some love, you can use the reactions in this presentation today. Just a little advertisement for what's upcoming. You still can sign up for sessions if you haven't had a chance to review the sessions, and or if you didn't get the email from WCG, you can let us know. You can email into WCG. We're happy to forward you all the registration links for these sessions, but still a lot more to come. Even this week, we still have a couple sessions to attend and plenty to learn next week. So that's my getting you pumped on all of the learning you could do. But also we recognize it's a lot of time. So again, just appreciate you spending the time with us today. So what are we going to cover today with you? We are going to talk about the history of State Need Grant / the Washington College Grant. We're going to talk a little bit about WA Grant marketing. We'll dive into the Washington College Grant, Washington College Grant Connect, and then WA Grant for Apprenticeship, or WGA. And then, like I said, we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. So we look forward to hearing what questions you have for us. First thing I'd like to do is get a little vibe check from everyone. How is everyone feeling this morning? What are you bringing with you today into this Tuesday morning? You can select the QR code, put a couple words, let us know where you're coming from. I would say today I'm feeling excited, awake now that I've had a cup of coffee, and ready to kind of walk through this presentation and be with you all today. So we'll give you a minute or so to kind of put in some of where you're coming from today. And if you know me, you know I love a word cloud. So that's what we're doing here. A little tired, feel you. Hey, a little tired and awake. We're balancing here already. Overwhelmed. Okay, hear that. Wow. All right. Everyone's kind of coming from different places. Ooh, hungry. Same. I haven't had breakfast yet. My go-to is a yogurt. Ready to learn. Yeah. Thank you all. This is great. It's always good for us to kind of see where everyone's coming from and what they're bringing with them to our sessions. You know, we can help and see where we can help maybe ease some of that overwhelm. Ooh, the sun is shining with you. I am a summer girl. Yay for excited. Thanks for being excited to be here today. We appreciate that. Yeah, it seems like we have a lot of energy coming in. We have some tired folks, we have some anxious, overwhelmed folks. a variety of different feelings we have. But thank you for bringing your full self today, and we're excited you're here. So we're going to give a little history lesson today on the Washington College Grant. This is actually a really great uh, exercise for myself to kind of get to know a little bit more about when was this program established, what kinds of things happen. Of course, this is not an exhaustive timeline, but these are just some key things that have happened. And so 1969 is when the state need grant program was established. So we've had this state need grant for college students since that point. And give me a thumbs up if you were working at a time where we still called it state need grant, or if you've not even heard that term. I'd love to see thumbs up for those who have worked in the state need grant time. Awesome. Me too. So it's hard to go away from SNG. We got so stuck with that. And so, yeah, love it. I love to see all the people I've worked since then. Not since 1969, but within that time frame of SNG. So then what happened in 2014, the legislature enacted the Real Hope Act, and it granted students SNG, also referred to as 1079 requirements, and that allowed students, like undocumented students, to be able to receive the state need grant. So this was a huge deal for opening it up to all Washingtonian students. So we love this. In 2019, the Washington College Grant Program was established. So if you have started from 2019 or later, this is probably all this grant to be named as, and it replaced the State Need Grant Program. So that's a big date for us. We're now in the Washington College Grant era. Also, during this session, the Workforce Education Investment Act added guaranteed funding for WCG students for all eligible apprentices starting in the 2020-21 academic year. So this is where we see WA Grant for apprenticeship introduced. And Lyle is going to be doing a great job kind of telling us a lot more about that journey. In 2020, huge year for the program, guaranteed funding for all eligible students was added to statute. So this became an entitlement program, which for those of us that have been working in financial aid for many years, this is a huge win for our students to know that they're going to get it. There's not going to be served and unserved students on our campuses. Campuses won't have to balance that budget and how to award different students and prioritizing different students. Now, every student that's eligible is able to receive the grant. So that we love that. And lastly, kind of the last biggest thing kind of happened is Washington College Grant Connect is established through SSHB 1835, beginning the 2023-24 academic year. So we're going to talk a lot more about Washington College Grant Connect and WA Grant for apprenticeship. So I won't go into detail about that, but this kind of gives you like a basic timeline on some of the bigger things that have happened within the grant's history. So we've talked about this in other spaces, but just kind of want to give some clarification. You probably heard us say WA Grant or Washington College Grant interchangeably, and you might be wondering why. What's trying to come across here, and what's going on, and why is there different terminology? The reason that after doing market research and spending a lot of time kind of considering what WCG goes for, is it really goes for more than just students attending college. So these are students that are apprentices. These are students in different programs. They could be college programs, certificate programs, things like that. So the agency wanted to kind of go with marketing that increased awareness of the grant for many different pathways for students. And so here we have WA Grant being used in branding and marketing across the state. Give me a thumbs up if you've seen any of the ads. Have you seen a Facebook ad for WA Grant? Have you seen a billboard? I know there was a lot more when we first started doing the marketing. Awesome. Okay, great. So our marketing's going good. We just want more students to know that they might have a pathway and may have that support through the Washington College Grant, or also called the WA Grant. So in case you see this is where that work has been. And just a little info for you. If you want to spread the word, here's some talking points you can talk to your students about. It's generous, find out if you qualify, it's flexible, you have options. You don't have to be full-time. You can go part-time and receive this grant. And there's some resources for you. So we do have it in English and Spanish at wagrant.org. You can go there and find a bunch of different information available for students and families. And we also have a toolkit as well for branded content. All right, so we have made it to the umbrella part. So you hear us talking about the umbrella, and the reason why is WA Grant is just a big different umbrella that kind of holds different ways to qualify for the grant. It is all Washington College Grant funding. So that's something we talked about a little bit. Carla talked about this in yesterday's webinar. It's not different funding. All these different pathways actually are the same funding. It's just they're different ways to qualify for that funding. And so that's the way to think about it. We have the WA Grant umbrella, and we're going to have these three different ways to qualify for that funding. So who's eligible for this funding? We know that Washington residents, we know that's a big thing is residency. And that includes those with any immigration status. So we talked about that a little bit earlier in the timeline, that was changed in 2014 with HB 1079. So any student that's a resident. Recent high school grads or any adult, and no age restrictions. So anybody can apply for this. Low to middle income families and individuals, and people who plan to attend an approved certificate program, job training, apprenticeship, or college, part-time or full-time. So main thing here is there's a lot of opportunity for students and apprentices to be able to access this funding. So what we like to say, and it is 100% true, it's one of the most generous financial aid programs in the country. So for colleagues of mine that get to attend different meetings where the different states are meeting together, we always see how substantial our funding is in comparison to other states that they give students. It's incredible to know what Washington gives students, and also that it is still in an entitlement for these students as well. And so the award amount, of course, is based on family size, income, and the cost of the school that they're attending, so the type of school that they're attending. Need is determined by median family income. So this is different than the federal aid programs, which use student aid index. So this is kind of a different thing about state awarding. And this is something that is in statute. And when we say statute, we mean that it's in the law for this grant. So when we ask for MFI, the reason why is because it's dictated in law for us to do so. So speaking of MFI, here's a glimpse of what that looks like. So important thing to remember about MFI, it's determined annually and it's specific to an academic year. And so the median family income charts will always come out each year, and we'll let you know when those are available, of course. And this is an example of what's to come for the 2025-26 academic year. Now, the way that you read this chart is you're going to go by family size and then go by income to find the MFI percentage that a student qualifies for. And we'll show an awarding chart here in a moment, but the MFI percentage is key because that tells you which award amount the student is eligible for. So for example, for this upcoming year, a student can earn $41,000 or less and get the full Washington College Grant Award in a family of one, but they can earn up to $68,000 and still get a partial award in Washington College Grant. Likewise, with an eligible student with a family of four, they can have a full award if they earn $78,500 or less, or they can earn up to $131,000 to still get a partial award in Washington College Grants. So did you know we had a financial aid calculator? Let me know, thumbs up. Did you know that there's a grant calculator on the WASAC website where students can estimate their potential WA Grant award? This is something we actually update every year, and it is really helpful for families as they're searching to kind of understand their state aid eligibility, especially our prospective students. So what does a student need to have? They need to demonstrate financial need. And this is determined a couple different ways. That's through financial aid application like the FAFSA or WASFA, or through a program, income eligible program like WCGC, which I'll talk about more, and so will Gabi. Be a resident of Washington State, attending an approved participating institution or apprenticeship program. So we always list our approved participating institutions and apprenticeship programs on our website if you're ever curious. Have earned a high school diploma or the equivalent. Not be pursuing a degree in theology, not already received a bachelor's degree or higher, not be in default or owe repayment on another state financial aid program. So how do we determine the MFI levels, or how do we determine need? And so we look at the income, and there's specific income that we are going to look at that is outlined in our program manual to determine those need levels and specifically determine MFI. So most students are going to complete a financial aid application like the FAFSA or WASFA, but they can also be qualified automatically for be income eligible for Washington College Grant, the maximum amount, if they're part of certain programs, either an approved program or a program that is in statute. So here's an example of those programs that are currently approved and students that would be deemed automatically income eligible without a financial aid application. It's really important too if a student is hasn't completed an application and they're looking for additional funding and they do qualify for federal aid to be applying and encouraged to complete the FAFSA form. So Washington College Grant can cover tuition and fees, but as we all know, students that have high need might qualify for Pell Grant and other ways to help cover the costs of attendance at a school. So we always encourage students to complete applications if they haven't already. Where can students get help for applying for federal aid? I mean, you all are amazing and you can help, but there's also the public library, there's Federal Student Aid Help Center. And then if you weren't aware, we have what's called the 12th year campaign at WASAC. So you can look at the link there or the URL there, but there's a lot of different events online and in person that our College Access and Initiatives team do put on so that students can learn more and get help with their FAFSA or WASPA. So lots of different places to look for help. And thank you all for all the help you provide students every day in completing these applications. So speaking of award charts, here's what our award chart's going to be looking for Washington College Grant only for this upcoming year in 2025-26. So when we talked about the MFI levels, this is where it comes in. You've determined the student, hey, has 60% MFI, they're going to get the award listed on that column of the chart. That is the annual award. So for semester schools, they divide it by 2 if they're attending 2 semesters. For quarter schools, they're going to attend it, or sorry, divide it by 3, and that's how they determine the quarterly amount. Just a note, this is for full-time enrollment, so this doesn't break it down for those students that do attend part-time, but I'll talk about a resource for that here in a moment. So what is the maximum time frame to receive Washington College Grant? We are thrilled that this actually increased to up to 18 quarters or 12 semesters. And so this is kind of an alignment with Pell eligibility as well. And so a student could have 6 years of full-time eligibility for this grant. And this is a wonderful thing. So maybe a student actually does a school program and uses some of their eligibility, but then they still have enough to go through an apprenticeship. There's lots of opportunity for student, and we know that a lot of our education is not always linear, so it gives a lot more opportunity and is not as confusing when Pell would still be okay, but then state aid would not, or they'd exhaust state aid and they'd only have Pell. So now that's that same time frame for federal and state funds. So love to see that. I'm going to transition a little bit to some tools that are available to you in the portal and specifically for Washington College Grants. So the first one is the archive. What does the archive look at? So the archive is looking for students that have 5 or less QERs remaining in Washington College Grant. So a QER is quarters estimated remaining. That's what it stands for. But it can also be, so a QER is just telling you the amount of maximum time frame they have left. So this is really a tool if you're looking for students that you're wondering if they're going to be running out of eligibility soon, and you need to see, okay, who's on this list, who do we need to contact and let them know, hey, you might only have 2 quarters of the 3 quarters left. And depending on your system, you might have alerts, holds, different things like that could assist you with noting these students so that they're aware. So we recommend that schools absolutely run all their students through the archive at least once a year, if not more, as you gain more students throughout the year. It's a great tool for you. You can use, as you can see, there's targeted search or uploading a file searching by SSN. It's very similar to the rest of our checkers. Now, while this will indicate students that are in repayment, it's not going to list all students that are in repayment. And so we're going to talk about a tool for that. That is called the repayment checker. So if you have been with WASOC at all for a little bit of time, you know we love a checker. We love you to be able to dump a bunch of numbers in something and it give you results and give you the information you need. So the repayment checker is going to do just that. You can search by name individually, by SSN list, just by throwing them in there, or uploading a search. And it'll tell you any of your students that are in repayment. And this, of course, is crucial as well as you're awarding students, because you want to make sure that they are aware that they have a repayment, and also aware that they cannot qualify for aid until that repayment is taken care of. We also have reports, lots of reports. So if you're familiar with Seesaw, there's Seesaw, you go to the reports menu, and there's lots of ways to kind of assist you with identifying certain pockets of students. So we have an all student award report, which identifies students that are listed in Seesaw, that you've uploaded in Seesaw for the year. So this can be a great tool, I always mention, for reconciliation, especially since we're in that time period right now. You can also see need met, who you've reported, canceled awards. There's a lot of different options here. So this is an excellent tool if you're looking for different ways to identify certain pockets of students. Likewise, you can search by fund type for schools. So you can search by WCG only and just click the search button. That'll give you all students that have WCG in Seesaw. And you can also download that. There's a little save icon there that will generate a report for you, a CSV report that you can use for your own purposes. You can sort by any program or all programs. This is a great way to kind of grab a list of students as well. And then there is the grant amounts page. So we already have our 2025-26 grant amounts available for you in Seesaw. And the reason why this is helpful is this is going to break down your students that are in less than full-time amounts. So if you're kind of curious, you'll see this in the student detail record in Seesaw as well. But if you want to have a list of all the award amounts on a quarter or term basis, you can actually download the CSV to save that for your award amounts for the year. And as you see, there's several sorting features. So you can sort it by term. You can sort it by what type of calendar. Are you a semester school? Are you a quarter school? You can do it by program. You can do it by percentage. For our CTCs who have applied back programs, you can add both the main degree and applied back amounts. So it's a really, really helpful tool if you're ever looking to see hey, what do they qualify? Or I'm kind of just want to make sure that I calculated the enrollment intensity correctly for 7 credits. And you can look on here and make sure that is true. So great, great tool for you. And then I think we're going to move on to Washington College Grant Connect. First, I'm going to stop sharing here and take a look and see what questions we might have here. Oh, that's a great question. So we have a question. Should we change our aid offers to reflect WA grant rather than the Washington College grant? I think you can leave it the same. You at campus and institutions, you are actually offering Washington College grant. WA grant, I would say, is more for a marketing purpose to let people know there's grant funding and for a variety of pathways. So no need to actually change that in terms of terminology, but appreciate you asking. Let's see, Washington College Grant is an entitlement grant and it is need-based grant. In other words, the award cannot go over the budget even though the student is eligible for a full-time award. That is correct. That's a really good point. Quay, really appreciate that. It is a need-based grant, so it cannot go over need as determined. So, which is cost of attendance minus SAI minus OFA, other financial aid, is need, and it cannot exceed need. Great point. Let's see, if the WCG umbrella comes from one same pot of funds, create so many different names, we'll be confused that they are from different pot of funds. Why not lump sum all eligibility requirements and indicate those are the requirement for WCG rather than separate them into several different names? Yeah, that is a great question. And I invite my other colleagues to kind of let me know if you have other thoughts on this. I think I think the reason why we do that is they really are separate programs, and we needed to identify what students qualify for which programs. So for example, Gabi's going to go over Washington College Grant Connect. This program is very specific to a certain population of students. So we needed to be able to identify who qualifies in this case. And so I think we needed to differentiate this program from Washington College Grant. Likewise with WA Grant for apprenticeship, it's specific to apprentices. So we needed to identify that. And I'm not sure, Gabi, if you have any other thoughts to help, but I appreciate you bringing this up.
Actually, I would like to invite Carla. Did you have anything to add to Carly's explanation on that? I know a lot of it is legislative, so Carla could fill us in a little bit better, please.
Yeah,
perfect.
It's really about branding and making sure that students and or apprentices can identify with what their connection is to the program. And so, for example, Washington College Grant Connect, individuals in those populations that are served are actually advised that they qualify for Washington College Grant Connect. So when they show up on a college campus, for example, they can identify themselves to the financial aid office to say, I qualify for Washington College Grant Connect. And that way the college knows to check the eligibility checker, where they would be able to confirm that student's eligibility if a student didn't have their letter, for example. And also from a marketing standpoint, when the research was done, we wanted to make sure that apprentices saw themselves in this program as well. And Washington Grant for Apprenticeships is the branding, because it's not about college for them, it's about the apprenticeship. So it's really reaching out and meeting populations being served by this program where they are, so they can see where they fit.
Thanks, Carla.
All right, if there's no further questions, I'll go ahead and jump in on the Washington College Grant Connect. And I want to first say, I apologize, my allergies are kicking in today, so I have a bit of a cough. I will try not to cough in anybody's ear, but if I do have to mute myself for a second, that's fine. So Washington College Grant Connect. This is a great program. We've been now doing it a few years. Hopefully the colleges are all used to the program now. And as you know, the Washington College Grant Connect came about under the second substitute House Bill 1835 in 2022, which granted these three agencies under DSHS, the Aged, Blind, and Disabled programs, essential needs and housing support, and pregnant women assistance program, specifically in the bill, to be able to qualify for a maximum Washington College grant based on being in these programs. And these programs are all means tested, and so it was determined that their income levels could automatically qualify them for the maximum Washington College grant. An interesting part about this bill is it also extended it to dependents, dependent children of these three programs. However, what was discovered when implementing the program and working with DSHS, all three of these programs, the participants don't have any dependents by virtue of the type of these programs. If they did have dependents, they would be in different programs. So that stipulation is in the bill. However, they don't have dependents. So that's why we don't mention that part under Washington College Grant Connect. Under the WASAC authority, it was determined that we are able to approve other programs to participate in Washington College Grant. And in 2023, we had approved the Economic Security for All, or EXA for others who might know it by that name. And to let you all know that if you know of programs within the community who do have means tested programs for their income levels, they can inquire with us, inquire with at the WCG at Gmail, not Gmail, wasac.wa.gov, our general email, and ask for an application or talk to one of us to give more information about how you can potentially become a part of this great Washington College Grant Connect program. So the goal of the Washington College Grant Connect is intended to reduce the initial barriers to enrollment of a financial aid application. So what it is that because they are verified as meeting income requirements through their means tested program, they don't have to complete a FAFSA or a WASFA like a regular Washington College Grant student would have to do. And so the intent behind this was just to alleviate some of those barriers, give them an early commitment for them to know that they'll be able to attend college without having to deal with the FAFSA or the WASFA. Because as we know, that is a barrier and can be very intimidating and complex for some people. And it has scared some off from completing their educational goals. So this is one route for them to be able to get Washington College Grant funding and know that they'll have at least state funding when they start college. So if they met the eligibility under this category, we refer to them as Washington College Grant Connect. That was just a way for them to be able to identify themselves without having to say they're in a DSH program or other type of benefit program. It's, again, still Washington College Grant. It's just a different way to qualify, as Carly did explain nicely in her first section. Now, because it is Washington College Grant, it has all of the same requirements as Washington College Grant. So this is no different. They still need to meet all of the Washington College Grant requirements. And so that streamlines the programs. So the only difference is that the Washington College Grant Connect students, again, don't have to do a FAFSA or a WASFA. It's not required for them, and they will qualify for maximum Washington College Grant award regardless of what their MFI comes back from their FAFSA or WASFA if they do complete one. And what we found over the years is that the majority of students do complete the FAFSA or WASFA because when they're working with schools or their counselors or different BFET departments on campuses or in the community, they're often encouraged to do the FAFSA or the WASFA, particularly the FAFSA, up front because we all know that they would be able to utilize financial aid and get a lot more money by qualifying through the FAFSA for Pell Grant and other institutional aid that might be out there for them. For the folks who are doing the WASFA, of course, they're just, they qualify only for state aid. So if they can do a FAFSA, that's, you know, a bigger benefit for the students. Another benefit for the students is, again, as I just mentioned, that if they are doing, if they do a FAFSA and a WASFA and they end up being over what is now the maximum MFI this year is for the 25-26 year is changing to 60% from 65%. So anybody who is their MFIs are above the 60%, if they hit 65, 100%, whatever, as long as it's within their need, they should be offered the maximum award amount, which is the yellow highlighted column in this sample award charts. So that's a huge benefit because there's a big difference between the $12,000 for Washington UW, for example, versus the $1,200 if they're at the 100%. And just a reminder that if they are going to be participating and they are a CBS eligible student, they still do need to complete a FAFSA or a WASFA, and they still do need to meet the 60%, actually 65% for CBS to be able to also be awarded the CBS awards. So if you're not CBS eligible, the maximum is 60 and 65% for the CBS. So how does this look at your campus? How do you identify these folks if they don't fill out a FAFSA or WASFA? The student is going to receive some sort of an approval notification from their agency. DSHS does send them a letter confirming that they are in the program and that they qualify for Washington College Grant. I know EXA reaches out to their students as well. And so students are encouraged to apply for college and hopefully do their financial aid. If they don't do their financial aid, the financial aid offices need to have a way to identify the students. And so we do have a Washington College Grant Connect checker. And I will show a screenshot of that shortly. However, if the student is not in the checker, then they can present their letter to the financial aid office confirming that they are a Washington College Grant Connect eligible student. And the colleges can reach out to us again at the WCG email and let us know that they have the student, and then we can do the background information and update the checker and make sure that they do get qualified for the Washington College Grant Connect program. Again, if financial aid offices don't have a financial aid application, how do you identify a student and they don't fall through the cracks? We ask that you develop a process of working together with your admissions office, perhaps to be able to load those students through the checker just to make sure we can find them. I know it feels like it could be a little bit cumbersome to do so, but we want to take some of the pressure off of students of having to self-identify. But however we can get them identified, please work with us. We're happy to get them through the system. Sorry, my mouse is not wanting to move. Okay. So I did mention the Washington College Grant Connect checker. If any of you have seen this before, it's a great way to identify. It will provide all of the same information for your students. You can look up your students by name search, social security list search, or a whole file upload into the checker. I would recommend doing the social security check if you have their social security number, because if you're going to do the name search, you actually have to have their exact first name, last name, and date of birth. And so, as we know, a lot of students have varying names that they use when they're applying, so they might not come up in the system. But once you do it, you're going to get the, let them know when their eligibility is, how many QERs they have left, the quarters of eligibility remaining, whether or not they are CBS eligible, whether they are in repayment, and when they were reported. Because these students do have a year from when they enroll to be able to participate under Washington College Grant Connect. So that's saying that if they started in April of this year, they're going to get a full year, because we're not going to cut them off in the middle of an academic year. We want them to be able to complete their program. And that was the wrap up of the Washington College Grant Connect. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to throw them in the Q&A, and I'll be happy to respond. You can also wait until the end and throw them in there as well. And just want to, before I pass it on to Lyle for the apprenticeship part, want to thank you all for all of your hard work and identifying these students. And I want to let you know that we have heard back from some of the organizations. We have helped students who have gone from like very little financial aid to a full tuition and fees award amount, and it is changing people's lives. So what you are doing is very important, and it does make a difference. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Gabi. I was just going to mention there's no questions at this time, but feel free to put them in there, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Just want to double check that my slide is now showing. Carly.
It is on there. You're good.
Awesome. All right. Well, great to see you all. If you've seen me yesterday, I just want to let you know our presentation today is going to go a little deeper. And as Carly shared earlier, if you want an opportunity to really dive in a little deeper, even more than what we're doing today with our WILD Grant for Apprenticeship application and some of the other processes that we have for WGA, we have a webinar being offered next week to do a little bit deeper dive there as well. As pointed out, WILD Grant for Apprenticeship fits under the umbrella of Washington College Grant. So it's basically the same program. It's just extended to state registered apprentices. I think to the question about why not just, kind of combine it all together. There's a little bit of nuance with apprenticeship that makes it a little bit different in some regards that may complicate things, and I hope to try to smooth out those little complications here today to some extent. And so we'll dive in here. To back up some of the legislation that we've kind of already been dabbling in throughout this presentation. One of the main bills that kind of adjusted WILD Grant for Apprenticeship is Senate Bill 5764 from 2022, and it basically changed the WGA maximum award value to align with the CTC Washington College Grant Awards. So the Community Technical College 2-year award values are now aligned with WILD Grant for Apprenticeship. Apprentices doing their related supplemental instruction, that's their classroom instruction as part of their apprenticeship through a CTC or having some kind of connection to the CTC campuses, are also in the spirit of this bill there's trying to be an effort to increase their access to the grant through their colleges. And then it also commissioned a study with the Ruckelshaus Center, which will be due in 2026. Similarly, as Gabi and Carly have already shared with Washington College Grant Connect with House Bill 1835 back in 2022, Washington College Grant Connect also applies to apprentices. So moving forward in 2023, we saw the increase of our MFI for maximum value awards increased to 65% MFI, and we also had the Washington Bridge Grant continue in 2023. Going into 2024, we had the expansion for Washington College Grant eligibility to 6 years or 18 quarters, 12 semester hours or the equivalent. And then going into this most recent legislative session, we saw a bit of a change to the WILD Grant for Apprenticeship in that collectively with Washington College Grant, the maximum value awards are reserved for those with MFI up to 60%, which is down from the 65% previously. And then for 26-27, we do see a decrease in the WGA award to be at 50% the Washington College Grant CTC award of values. So some major kind of adjustment there based on the budget situation. I will also note that in the budget bill, we don't have the continuation of the bridge grants. So that's just a brief kind of history, but it connects to some of these other points that I'm going to share with you all as what we've been learning through implementing WILD Grant for Apprenticeship. One of the big questions is, well, what are the costs of apprenticeship? And this has been a really difficult kind of space to navigate because every program is different. We have different length of programs. We have some programs that charge tuition and others that don't. But comparatively to a community technical college student with a 9-month full-time enrollment, represented here on the left in the kind of goldenrod colored boxes, in comparison with a registered apprentice and an inside electrician for their initial 2,000 on-the-job training hours and 160 RSI hour requirement. This particular program that we're looking at does charge or pass on about 50% of the tuition to the apprentice. And then they also have additional tools, equipment, boots, and clothing types of expenses, as well as licensure, certification, examination fees. Transportation is another one that we see is a pretty big need to fill for a lot of apprentices, especially if they're in rural areas and need to travel a pretty long distance to get to their on-the-job training or the related supplemental instruction. And so what this table highlights is that there's some kind of similarities in costs with a CTC student, but as the next slide will show, it is this is looking at above the line expenses, so above that from the transportation line up, how it can vary across different sectors. So as you might have heard, some apprentices do not pay tuition. That is true, but not all of them fall in that category. And so right now we currently have roughly about 40 apprenticeship sponsors that participate in Washington College Grant or WAL Grant for Apprenticeship. There are over or right around 200 actually approved sponsors with the Department of Labor and Industries currently. So you can imagine that the majority of program sponsors out there, with about 50% of the apprentices spread out through those, are a lot smaller than the ones that we currently have. And so that kind of creates a little bit of difference in how they might administer their program. They may not have the fiscal resources or the setup to establish an education trust fund to pay for that tuition. Others will share it. Some will pass 100% of that tuition cost on to their apprentices. When we look at books and supplies, we broke that down for you all. It kind of varies here from program to program. And depending on what program, it might be, that they don't have any books or supplies kinds of costs in the traditional sense of college student. But then we got tools and equipment, and this can vary pretty greatly for a lot of the building construction trades. Closed-toed steel boots probably needing to be replaced at least twice every year, can run easily in the $500 range. High-vis rain gear, if we're in a rainy state 9 months out of the year, they need that high-vis rain gear that can cost very easily at least $250 per set. A lot of them will build in needing to acquire a certain number of tools as they work their way through their apprenticeship program. And then those licensure, certification, exam fees will vary by program as well. As you can see, transportation, we've modeled after kind of a 12-month WAFA budget here. But for some of them that do have, in this particular truck driver program, they need to go to Pasco for 6 months out of the year to do, 6 weeks out of the year to do related supplemental instruction. And for some of those, that includes lodging and transportation costs to get there. So it varies, is kind of what I'm trying to get across here to you all. As it currently stands, we've been working to try to increase access to WGA awards, because that funding in the hands of apprentices can be really helpful for them getting on the job and getting to work. And so when we first started this program, we were working with 2 different apprenticeship sponsors. The expectation was that any sponsor coming online with WASAC would be able to function very similarly to a financial aid office and be able to provide for that administrative capability requirements, very similar to you all with working with state and federal student aid programs, having separation of functions. And a lot of those programs, as I've kind of alluded to, are small and only operate with maybe 1 or 2 staff members at the coordination level. So having them facilitate state financial aid programs became very limited for those apprenticeship sponsors to partake in. As a result, we went forward with a contract to contract a third-party servicer to function in that capacity. We brought on a nonprofit group that specializes in pre-apprenticeship. They're known as ANEW, and we started with them at the tail end of the 22-23 fiscal year to get established. And by last fiscal year, the 23-24 year, they were able to increase awards up to 2.7 million and 836 apprentices compared to the year prior, which was at about 113 apprentices and only $331,000 out the door. They've continued that work this year, and as of last week, we had about $8.6 million awarded to more than 2,300 apprentices. Again, as I noted, we're only having access at this point to about 50% of state registered apprentices. So our work will continue. I'll talk a little bit more, but unfortunately, due to the budget situation, we were not able to renew that contract with ANEW for next fiscal year. So I will discuss what that looks like a little more in a couple of slides from here. As you've already heard from Carly, there are eligibility requirements for Washington College Grant. Those all get carried forward here to Well Grant for apprenticeship. The one or two differences that I'll point out here is that they must be in an approved state registered apprenticeship program. Yesterday we had a question, so I went in and added our RCW where it calls this out, and it specifically identifies that they must be part of a state registered apprenticeship program under Chapter 4904 RCW. So for returning applicants, we've also had to kind of figure out how we're going to qualify a renewal award based on different requirements that are not just academic based. So I'll go into that a little bit more as well. To kind of extend more, what do we mean by Washington State Registered Apprenticeships under RCW 4904? In the corresponding WAC, it does not include pre-apprenticeship or what we also refer to here in Washington as a state recognized apprenticeship preparation program. So individuals in those types of programs are not eligible to receive Well Grant for apprenticeship, but once they're part of a registered apprenticeship program, if we have them set up with WASAC, we're able to allow them to access Washington College Grant or Well Grant for apprenticeship. And I will also note that the corresponding RCWs and WACs in the state of Washington established that the minimum number of on-the-job training hours, what we refer to often as OJT, for a program to be registered is 2,000 hours. So just to differentiate, like if it's a short-term kind of certificated training program that doesn't require 2,000 on-the-job training hours, they will likely not be in the category where they can apply for state registered apprenticeship approval through LNI and the WSATC, which is the Washington State Apprenticeship and Training Council. In addition to that, the apprentices are required to complete 144 related supplemental instruction or RSI hours per year. This would usually be the classroom learning experience that accompanies the hands-on learning that they're receiving on the job training. For OJT hours, we see the gamut between a minimum of 2,000 on-the-job training hours all the way to programs that are like in the 10,000 hour range. So big variance there with programs as well. So how do we make apprenticeship fit in Washington College Grant? So what we've done is we've equated the full award, which for 25-26, if they're in the 60% MFI category, will get the $4,923 WGA award. We equate that to a 3/4 of eligibility used equivalency and tied to 2,000 on-the-job training hours and 144 RSI hours. To be eligible for a renewal award, especially for those that are in longer programs that expand greater than 2,000 hours, they must complete 67% of those hours in both categories. So it equates to 1,340 on the job training hours and 96 RSI hours. What we attempted to do with ANEW, and what the State Board for Community Technical Colleges, our partners there, have realized is rather than tying these awards to the academic terms, doing a one-time full year award at the front in the fall helps coordinate the justification for renewal awards a lot easier, since we're dependent on L&I data, which is updated twice per year, once in January and once in July. So to kind of streamline the work and help qualify apprentices for the renewal award, it's been easier to do just a one-time award, where we can easily be able to identify those that are eligible for that or not. We have provisions for apprentices who have less than 2,000 hours remaining, as well as those who are starting after the start of the fiscal year. And in those cases, the awards are prorated very similarly to enrollment intensity on the credit hour side of things, to match what hours we're awarding for. And then SPP follows a 67% calculation of those hours. So as I've noted prior, I didn't dig into it a whole lot, but we've Senate Bill 5764 required expansion to apprentices that are accessing their related supplemental instruction through CTCs. And so I want to note here some of the work that we've been doing with the State Board. State Board convened a work group with 6 pilot campuses, and those are listed here on the bottom: Spokane, Columbia Basin, Everett, South Seattle, Renton, and Bates. And we've been working with that work group since around the 23-24 fiscal year. Last fall 2024, State Board partnered with WASAC to develop an online funding application that was completed earlier this or late this winter, early spring of this year. So we're happy to announce that starting in the 25-26, we will have an online application that apprentices will be able to access and fill out. That application mirrors, but is not exactly the same as the FAFSA. There are questions that our stakeholders in apprenticeship felt are inappropriate or confusing for apprentices to fill out if we have them do the FAFSA. The other thing is that the apprentices that are not connected to a CTC, how would we facilitate getting FAFSA data to those folks? And in the initial kind of layout that we were working with ANEW, that became problematic. So creating an apprentice-focused application was our goal, and trying to make that as accessible as possible. I will highlight that our goal is to have it in Spanish. We won't have it available in Spanish effective July 1st, but sometime after the start of this fiscal year, our hope is to get it into Spanish language as well. In this past spring, we've also targeted outreach to apprenticeship sponsors that have connections with the State Board, with CTCs. We offered any apprenticeship program that was already participating with ANEW the option to move over to having the CTC Financial Aid Office process awards. We did not get any responses back that wanted to change over at that time. And so we continue with outreach to all sponsors that we did not have set up for Wall Grant for Apprenticeship. And as a result, we have currently AJAC, Advanced Manufacturing Apprenticeships, that was already previously approved, that will work with the pilot campuses starting here in 25-26. And the Washington State Fish Cutters and Meat Mongers Apprenticeship Committee that is currently set up for initial implementation here in the beginning of the fall 2025 term. So The anticipated implementation with the state board is to roll this out initially with the 6 pilot campuses. Again, we're looking at a one-time full-year award. As a result of our decision not to continue the contract with ANU, WASAC has already made provisions to bring that work in-house. There is no anticipated additional workload for the CTC financial aid offices at this time to minimize the impact to apprentices. If the pilot program outcome data that SBCTC is looking for is in alignment with what their goals are, the plan is to then eventually roll out to the other campuses, and along the way, WASAC will continue to reach out to those apprenticeship sponsors and find more connections that we can make to help facilitate more apprentices having access to the grant. So that's a brief synopsis of where we're at with State Board. Again, I will be presenting again next week, diving in a little bit deeper into our WAL Grant for Apprenticeship application and some of the other similarly related policies. For WASAC resources, as we wrap this up here, just want to point out, like, we have a toll-free line and some emails that general email inboxes that your students can reach out to if they have questions or if families have questions. We also have dedicated program inboxes for FAAs on the Washington College Grant side of things. We have our website that we think is pretty comprehensive in trying to help folks figure out what they're eligible for, as you've seen in our presentation today. And then we also have an 888 line for apprentices who want more information with apprenticeship. It's just the same number, but selecting option 9. And we have our apprenticeship inbox. If FAAs have questions, reach out to that. Your feedback on our presentation today was greatly appreciated. A short survey will pop up after this presentation. Please let us know how you felt we did today, and anything you'd like to know or see in the future. Your feedback is really important to us. And then we just want to close here. We'll have some time for Q&A, obviously, but thank you for your time. And yeah, appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Lyle. We have a couple questions for you in the Q&A today. So first, off topic, but what is an inside electrician or inside something? I don't know. I saw another one.
Sure thing. Inside electrician, also known as like an inside wireman. These are the folks that you would probably call to help in your building, I think, at work. They're not quite residential electricians, but they're going to be doing a lot more of the wiring. I'm not the specialist there. So, I don't know all the job scope requirements, and they have their very specific divisions of, what they can and cannot do as part of an inside electrician. But it is one of the licensed apprenticeship programs out there. So in order to work in this field, you need to complete a licensure exam.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Hey, learning something new every day. If apprenticeships don't pay tuition, do they still qualify for the standard WGA amount based on their MFI? Or is the amount reduced to prevent award amounts from exceeding tuition? Kind of similar to like how Washington College Grant has to be within tuition fees.
Right. So similarly to that same Senate bill that modified WAL Grant for apprenticeship to match the CTC award values, 5764 from 2022, language was also included to give a little bit more latitude as to what expenses apprentices could use the WAL Grant for apprenticeship to cover. And so it includes those other things besides tuition that I kind of highlighted, which could mean, helping compensate for that transportation to and from on-the-job training or related supplemental instruction, paying for their tools, supplies, boots, and clothing. The exact language reads a little bit more like and other expenses that help facilitate educational endeavors. That might not be a direct quote, but close to it. This has been a space of learning for WASAC. So we've been continually improving, learning what costs apprentices generally incur. And I hope to have illustrated, like, we're still learning. We only have about 40 sponsors out of the 200-ish sponsors out there, the majority of them being smaller. I think we will find a lot more variance with those smaller programs as to what costs they pass on to their apprentices. But yes, when we review, and this is why we want them to go through a review with WASAC and setup process, we call it an intake process for the sponsors, is to evaluate their program costs and definitively ensure that the cost fits within the need of the Wall Grant for Apprenticeship value.
Great. And talking about that, I don't know if you mentioned this, but did you talk about how Apprentice applies to get the grant? It's not through a financial aid application, right? So how do they do that?
Yeah. So as we've talked about, our presentation next week, we have established an online application, and as a result of the work we're doing to bring the work in-house from ANU, we will be able to have all apprentices start with the same starting point in the application. Our application for our CTC partners is a little structurally different because information is not required to determine residency and other things like that on the CTC side of the house, whereas we need that to process applications coming in from the current ANU apprentices. And so that we have a separate application to answer your question, Carly. I will say that we have not yet finalized the decision, but we are hoping that to minimize workload and perhaps confusion, that FAAs that already have the FAFSA or the WASFA could also use that to determine eligibility. There are a lot of things similar with FAFSA, but as we went into FAFSA simplification and FTI data, that we can't create the same kind of modeling for that. It's created a little bit of variance between the FAFSA and our application.
Yeah, thanks, Lyle. Sounds like an advertisement to make sure you go to their expanded session. All if you haven't already. Another question was, I was previously told apprenticeships never qualify for aid other than WSOS or Washington State Opportunity Scholarship. And they were just curious, is this the same as the WSOS grant or is it different? You want to talk on that?
It's different. And folks can get both WSOS as well as WGA. I believe that WSOS eligibility is contingent upon being eligible for WGA. And so you may previously have heard that there's not a lot of funding available for apprentices because, as you saw earlier in my graph, we only had 2 sponsors and about 100 or so apprentices accessing the grant 2 years ago. And so as we've been working to expand that access, we have increased the availability of WGA throughout the state. But there's still work for us to do. If you know of an apprenticeship program and they have no clue about WGA, want to encourage them to participate with us, have them reach out to us at apprenticeship@wasac.wa.gov. Be happy to chat with them, help them fill out our intake form process and get them going. So
awesome. And you kind of alluded to this, and I think it's specific to the CTC process, but if an apprentice, submits a FAFSA or WASFA application, but they don't submit the online funding application, will colleges be expected to award the WGA using the financial aid application?
So yeah, as I've alluded, we're working on a policy that will allow for that. It's not finalized, so I don't want to overpromise here. But we're aware that financial aid administrators have a lot to contend with on a day-to-day basis, and we want to keep that simple for you all. You know, conflicting information is a big concern. But yeah, we'll continue to provide updates there on that one, and work with you all as we get closer to the fall.
Great. Thanks, Lyle. You had popular questions. Oh, one other thing that I always forget, what does RSI stand for? For those that are not
Related
familiar.
supplemental instruction. So it's related supplemental instruction is a classroom component. Typically, apprentices do not get paid during that time, as they would with on-the-job training hours. Some programs do kind of consolidate their RSI during the winter months, especially if they're outside kind of trade type of programs where there's not a whole lot of work to do during the winter months. So they might compact that all into about 3 months worth of classroom work. Others will spread it out throughout the year. Yeah, some have a lot, like in the healthcare sector. We see programs with, in excess of 400 or 500 hours per year that they must do, in expectation that the healthcare industry has a lot of standards to meet.
Thanks, Lyle. Appreciate that. Okay, y'all. Well, we have reached the last of our questions that we're going to answer live. If you have something else, we'll give you a couple seconds to type in your question. Can be for any of the grants, Washington College Grant, WGA, WCGC, anything else you'd like to let us know, we'd be happy. Other than that, like Lyle said, we'll have a survey that'll pop up for you. Would love you to hear your feedback, love to hear what you want to learn more about. And once again, we appreciate you being here today. I don't see anything else coming in here. And I know Gabi's typing an answer real quick before we leave. Just a few more moments if you all want to put something in there. If not, we send you on your way and hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday. We hope to see you at our future sessions and look forward to continuing to do all our work that we collaborate together. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.